just past midnight in Jeffersonville, Indiana. The house was silent, 3 small children sleeping upstairs, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound. But downstairs, that quiet was about to be shattered. A familiar argument was spiraling out of control, words turning into shouts, frustration into fear. In a matter of seconds, love and rage collided in a way no one in that neighborhood could have imagined. By the time it was over, 1 life would be gone, and 3 children would wake up to a world that would never be the same. Welcome back to CrimNest, where we walk you through real cases with context, care, and respect for the victims, not cheap shock value. If you appreciate deep, fact-based breakdowns like this, please support CrimNest by watching to the end, leaving a like, and sharing this video with someone who follows true crime. Tonight, we're going inside the case of 37-year-old nurse and mother of 3, Deborah Meyer, a woman who spent 15 years caring for others, only to lose her life in a brutal attack inside her own home. This is a story of love, ambition, jealousy, control, and the terrifying speed with which domestic tension can turn into deadly violence. Our story begins in southern Indiana, in the tight-knit community of Jeffersonville, where Deborah North and Taylor Meyer first met through mutual friends. They were young adults with their lives ahead of them, working, studying, and trying to build a future. Deborah graduated from Jeffersonville High School in 2006. From early on, she knew what she wanted: to become a nurse. Caring for people wasn't just something she was good at, it was part of who she was. She attended Indiana University Southeast, the University of Louisville, and Ivy Tech, stitching together her Bachelor of Science in Nursing across multiple schools. It wasn't confusion, it was commitment. People remembered Deborah as unforgettable. She had a big laugh, a bright smile, and a presence that filled any room. She loved the outdoors, pool days in the summer, skiing in the winter, trails and trips whenever she could get them. She came across as someone determined to actually live her life, not just drift through it. As her career and social circle grew, Deborah's friendship with Taylor slowly turned into something more. The relationship seemed grounded in shared values: hard work, stability, and the dream of a close, loving family. To the outside world, they looked like a perfect match. In 2020, Deborah welcomed her first child with Taylor. By the time they officially married in November 2021, they were already operating as a family. The wedding felt less like the start of something new and more like a celebration of what they had already built. Deborah leaned fully into motherhood. In 2022, she had their second child, and in 2023, their third. 3 kids in just a few years. The pace was intense, but for Deborah, this was part of the life she wanted: a busy, noisy home full of children she adored. At the same time, her professional life was taking off. Deborah wasn't just a nurse, she was a standout. After 15 years of service, she was honored with the Daisy Award, a prestigious recognition reserved for nurses who provide exceptional, compassionate care. She became a nurse manager at Wellstone Regional Hospital in Jeffersonville, an achievement that signaled leadership, trust, and years of dedication. Deborah was raising 3 children under 5, working full-time in a demanding field, and managing staff and patients. It takes an enormous amount of strength and emotional energy to hold all of that together. To friends and co-workers, she looked like she was pulling it off. Tired sometimes, sure. Stressed, of course. But from the outside, she was doing what so many working parents try to do: keep all the plates spinning without letting anyone down. Behind closed doors, the pressure was starting to crack the foundation of her marriage. In Deborah and Taylor's case, the issue wasn't just stress. It was Taylor's growing jealousy and paranoia about Deborah's life outside the home. As Deborah advanced in her career and took on more responsibility, her relationships with coworkers naturally grew closer. That's normal in healthcare, where people work long, intense shifts together. But Taylor zeroed in on her interactions with male colleagues, interpreting normal professional communication as something more. One coworker in particular became the focus of his obsession. Taylor claimed this person's name was saved in Deborah's phone as "my best friend Emily," and he convinced himself this relationship was a romantic threat. Whether he was misreading something real or inventing the whole story, it became the narrative he refused to let go of. Deborah repeatedly tried to reassure him. She explained that these were co-workers, that her loyalty was to her family, and that there was nothing inappropriate going on. But Taylor's insecurity and resentment kept building. His behavior shifted from loving to controlling, questioning her about where she'd been, who she'd talked to, and what was on her phone and computer. Experts on domestic violence point out that this pattern is common. It often starts as jealousy that might even be framed as love or concern. Over time, it escalates into checking phones, monitoring locations, demanding passwords, isolating a partner from friends and coworkers, and then, all too often, physical violence. Friends and family noticed that Deborah seemed more stressed, more withdrawn. The vibrant energy was still there, but something was draining her. She was trying to manage Taylor's suspicions, her demanding job, and 3 small children who needed her constant attention. Still, she stayed, kept trying, and hoped things would calm down. Instead, they escalated. On the night of March 15, 2025, the tension finally exploded. It began with Taylor trying to access Deborah's computer so he could dig through her personal messages. When she caught him, she confronted him and refused to hand over her phone. That refusal became the turning point. The argument intensified. Taylor demanded the phone. Deborah held her ground. At some point, the confrontation became physical. Deborah hit him in the face in self-defense, but Taylor overpowered her, ripped the phone away, and reportedly told her, "I'm stronger than you." From there, things moved into horror. According to investigators and Taylor's own statements, he began choking Deborah. She begged him to stop, asking, "What are you going to do? Kill me? You're going to hurt me and leave our kids with no parents?" Upstairs, those same children slept, unaware of the danger unfolding beneath them. Deborah tried to defend herself, hitting him with a water bottle, but he escalated further. He grabbed a wine bottle and struck her in the head until she lost consciousness. By that point, she was no longer fighting back. She was lying on the floor. Taylor went to the kitchen and retrieved what he later described as a big-ass kitchen knife, a long one. He returned to the bedroom and began stabbing Deborah as she lay unconscious on the floor. In total, she was stabbed around 40 times, 40 separate wounds. That speaks to intent and rage. This wasn't one terrible, impulsive act in a single second of anger. It was a prolonged, sustained attack on a defenseless woman, the mother of his children. The scene, when investigators later walked in, was brutal. Blood on the walls and floor, clear signs of a violent struggle, and a body that bore the marks of extreme overkill. But even then, Taylor's actions took an even darker turn. After killing Deborah, Taylor used her phone to take a photograph of her body on the floor. He then sent that photo to the contact saved as "my best friend Emily," with the caption, "Your fault." He later told police he hoped this would traumatize the recipient. He wasn't finished. Taylor also sent messages to Deborah's family and friends, telling them he had killed her. Some of these came through family group chats that usually carried everyday updates and photos of the kids. Imagine opening your phone and seeing someone calmly announce that they have just murdered your loved one and attach proof. All of this happened while 3 children, all under 5 years old, slept upstairs in the same house. One of Deborah's friends who received those messages realized immediately how serious the situation was. They contacted the Jeffersonville Police Department and drove to the house to help officers find the right address as quickly as possible. When police arrived, they knocked and got no response. Based on what they had seen in the messages, they prepared to force entry. Before they could, the garage door opened and Taylor walked out. His behavior toward officers was aggressive and non-compliant, and they had to physically subdue and arrest him, calling in backup from Indiana State Police. Once he was in custody, officers went inside and found exactly what they had feared. Deborah's body on the bedroom floor and 3 young children still asleep in the house. The kids were removed safely. Crime scene investigators began documenting the scene. Blood spatter, the position of the body, the knife, the damage from the wine bottle. The physical evidence lined up with what Taylor would later admit on camera. At the station, Taylor agreed to speak with investigators. On video, he walked them through the events of the night in a detached, matter-of-fact way that painted a clear picture of what happened, even as he tried to place emotional blame elsewhere. He was arrested and charged with murder and taken to the Clark County Detention Center, where he was held without bond. Just 3 days later, on March 18, 2025, he entered a plea of not guilty. As of now, his trial is scheduled to begin on July 15, 2025. He faces the possibility of life in prison without parole if convicted. The not guilty plea may seem shocking given his detailed statements to police, but in the legal system, it opens the door for his defense to argue issues like mental state, intent, or diminished capacity. What doesn't change are the facts. Deborah Meyer, 37 years old, was brutally killed in her own home by the father of her children after a long pattern of jealousy and control. For Deborah's loved ones, the legal back and forth doesn't change the reality of what happened in those early morning hours. Court dates can be delayed, hearings can be rescheduled, attorneys can file motions and argue over wording, but the core truth remains the same. Deborah is gone, and she is not coming back. The process that now lies ahead is long and emotionally draining. Family and friends may be called to testify. They may have to look at photographs from the scene, listen to recordings, and sit in the same room as the man accused of taking her life. Every step of the case will likely reopen wounds that are still fresh. At the same time, the justice system is one of the few avenues they have left to seek accountability. A verdict will not restore what was lost, but it can formally recognize the seriousness of Taylor's actions and the harm done to Deborah and her children. For her community, following this case is not about morbid curiosity. It is about making sure her story is heard, understood, and not quietly forgotten as just another tragic headline. In many domestic violence homicides, those closest to the couple can look back and point to moments that seemed troubling, but were easy to downplay at the time. Controlling questions, possessiveness, sudden anger over small things. Deborah's case will likely be examined in that same light. People who loved her are now left asking themselves whether there was anything more they could have done, even though the responsibility for this crime rests solely on the person who chose violence. Deborah leaves behind 3 small children who will grow up without their mother. As they get older, they will know her through photos, videos, and the memories shared by the people who loved her most. Her co-workers at Wellstone Regional Hospital lost a respected manager and a compassionate nurse, someone who showed up on the hardest days and took extra time with patients. Her friends lost the woman whose energy and loyalty had anchored their group. Her community lost someone who had spent 15 years caring for people at their most vulnerable, meeting families on the worst days, and offering what comfort she could. It's easy in true crime to focus on the killer, the details, the shock. But in this case, and in every case, there's a real person at the center whose life was so much more than the way it ended. Deborah was a mother, a nurse, a friend, and a daughter. She loved her children, took pride in her work, and invested deeply in the people around her. That's how she deserves to be remembered, not as a headline, but as a whole, irreplaceable person. This case is also a brutal example of how domestic violence can grow over time. The red flags were there: excessive jealousy, constant monitoring, accusations without evidence, attempts to control communication and devices, emotional abuse, and finally physical violence. These patterns don't always look dramatic at first. They can start with concern, with questions about where someone has been or who they're talking to, and slowly turn into control and fear. Many people experiencing abuse feel isolated or ashamed or afraid they won't be believed. If any part of Deborah's story feels familiar, if you recognize these patterns in your own relationship or someone else's, please take it seriously and reach out for help if it's safe to do so. If you're in the U.S., you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text START to 88788. If you're watching from another country, please look up local resources or hotlines in your area today. Deborah Meyer's story is not just a headline or a shocking case. It's a reminder of how quickly control can turn into terror and how important it is to recognize the warning signs before it's too late. If you found this breakdown informative and you want more in-depth, respectful coverage of real cases, please support CrimNest by subscribing, turning on notifications, and sharing this video. Your support helps CrimNest continue to tell victims' stories with the care they deserve. Drop a comment and tell us, what do you think was the biggest red flag in this relationship that people around them might have missed or minimized? And if this case stirred something in you because of what you're going through or what someone close to you might be facing, please reach out for help. Talk to someone you trust, call a hotline, or contact local services. Your life is worth protecting. Thank you for watching, for remembering Deborah, and for spending your time with us today. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and take care of yourselves and each other.